Next to you, It's the Rule by Lunar My Love. Chapter 6, Queen Merlin. The sixth rule to know when staying in Camelot, and arguably the most important, is to never harm the queen. Doing so invokes not only the wrath of the king, which is terrifying in its own right, but all of Camelot. Merlin knows about the whole queen thing. That's right, he knows. He isn't an idiot. Arthur is the idiot. He may try to say otherwise, but he is a liar. Does he really think that Merlin didn't know that he knew about his magic since the griffin? Probably, because he thinks Merlin is an idiot. Merlin would once again like to clarify, he is not an idiot. All of the stupidity landed on Arthur's side of the coin, lucky for Merlin. He just lets Arthur think that Merlin doesn't know the things that Arthur is pretending not to know because Arthur has a fragile mentality and it's better for everyone if they keep it intact. The point is that Merlin knows that everyone calls him the queen when they think he isn't listening. He'd have known well before Arthur called him it too. He knows Gaius hired a new assistant so that Merlin could focus more on his job as queen. He knows it is why Carl thinks he has to bow to him. Looking back, he thinks it is why Dahlia gave him queenly lessons, which are very helpful regardless of the situation and have been put to very good use. He is positive that Mordred calls him it to anyone willing to listen. He knows that citizens were chanting, "Long live the Queen!" during the riot that occurred when he locked himself in his room. And he knows that the knights were the ones who put the idea in Arthur's head. Merlin knows about all of these things, but he doesn't comment for multiple reasons. For starters, it seems to be a harmless joke, and he isn't one to stop people from having a good laugh. It also seems to have become so widespread that he doesn't think he could put a stop to it at this point if he tried. He doesn't think Arthur could either, especially since now that they are courting, the joke has only intensified, and it makes Arthur laugh when he hears people refer to him as the queen, and Merlin is a sucker for Arthur's laugh, so we couldn't tell them to stop even if he wanted to. But the thing is, Merlin doesn't get it. He laughs it off when he overhears servants and knights saying it. He laughs when citizens in the town offer him things while stating that they are for the queen. When their friends start calling him it more often to his face after they watch Arthur do it, he continues to laugh. He even laughs it off when Arthur does it. Often when giving Merlin something, Arthur has taken to saying, "For my queen." Merlin laughs because he thinks it's funny, but he just doesn't get it. Sure, Merlin fulfills the duties of the head of household, and maybe Arthur has a soft spot for him that he takes advantage of way too often. But that doesn't make him the queen. The joke started long before the whole courting thing, so that can't have to do with it. He doesn't think he acts like royalty, especially to servants or peasants. He tells people to refrain from using his title as he is uncomfortable with it. So how did they go from not using Lord to calling him the Queen? How did it spread to the lower towns and even foreign countries? The fact of the matter is that he is not the queen. He does not act like it, not really. He doesn't see what everyone is talking about. Merlin thinks the whole thing has gotten way out of hand, and that was before the present situation. The present situation being his magic confined by some sort of pendant while being imprisoned in the tallest tower of some old castle in the middle of a foreign kingdom of which he doesn't know the name. He has never seen something like the object wrapped around his throat, but he thinks it has completely rid him of any magic abilities, including calling to Kilgara and speaking to Mordred. When he was first taken while collecting some herbs for Gaius, even though he doesn't really have to anymore, and he is well aware that Arthur will be having a fit when he finds Merlin because Merlin didn't take anyone with him, they had used iron cuffs to restrain him. If they'd left him in just the cuffs, he would have escaped within hours. He has been practicing and succeeding at escaping from regular iron cuffs. It takes him some time, but his magic has become strong enough to overpower them. Not to mention that he is able to keep his Dragon Lord abilities and speak to Mordred when just trapped by iron cuffs. Before they reached the tower, though, they added the pendant which Merlin can't escape from no matter how hard he tries. It leaves permanent bruising wherever it lays on his neck, and he feels himself grow weaker by the hour. He can't even will himself to touch it. His captor must be very knowledgeable or have someone on their side that is. They also must have planned this far in advance. Merlin has been in this tower for 5 days. He feels like the fair maiden in one of those tales his mother used to tell him when he was a child, locked away in the highest tower and waiting for his prince to save him. Aside from the effects of the pendant, he hasn't been treated poorly, per se. He was blindfolded most of the way here, but from what he saw of the castle, it looks like someone has gone to great lengths to make it habitable again. The room they confined him in follows this deduction as it is, dare he say, fit for a queen. It is nearly the size of his chambers back home, which he thinks are far too big, but Arthur insisted on. The bed is smaller than Arthur's, but large in its own right, and quite comfortable. There are fur rugs covering most of the floor, a desk by the window, and a bookcase in the corner filled to the rim with books that he has used to occupy his time. One of the guards removed the iron cuffs once they had him in the room. Merlin tried to escape, but he has never been known for his physical strength, despite Arthur's attempts at training him. Other than the comfortable room, he is brought 3 meals a day. There is a hatch in the door that they pass the meals through and lock immediately after. It is the only interaction he has had with anyone since he was put in the room, if you can call it an interaction, seeing as the guards refuse to speak a word to him. He knows that there are at least 2 guards in front of the door because he can hear them whisper to each other occasionally, but not loud enough that he can figure out what they are saying. The only time he was able to gather a conversation was when someone was yelled at for sending him a tray that had blueberries on it. The person yelling was very angry about that, as he seemed aware of Merlin's allergy. This, and that on the second day of his visit, he was even given a bath with rose petals! They chained him to the bed while they filled the tub, and when it was emptied, but gave him plenty of time to soak and give him a comfortable nightgown to change into. That has confused Merlin greatly. If he closes his eyes and ignores the pendant and iron bars on the windows, he can almost pretend he's on vacation. It is not a vacation, though. He'd never go on vacation without Arthur. Arthur must be worried sick, and when Arthur is worried, Merlin is worried. He doesn't think the pendant will kill him, but he knows that it isn't doing wonders for his health. He's grown weak and nauseous. He has been handing his trays of food back almost full. Merlin knows he should eat to conserve his strength, but he can't stomach the food. Instead, he has taken to sipping on water and laying in the bed curled up beneath the furs provided when the night grew too cold, and Merlin acquiesced to asking for more blankets. He thinks that missing Arthur may be making his health decline even quicker. He misses him so much it hurts. When Merlin doesn't leave the bed to retrieve his lunch tray, he hears some more shouting, followed by his door banging open. The person who enters must not be afraid of Merlin escaping because he doesn't take the time to chain him to the bed. Considering how weak he feels, Merlin thinks that's a reasonable conclusion to draw. "Why are you not eating?" the man asks, slamming the door behind him. Merlin uses all of his energy to push himself into a sitting position. This is the first time anyone has spoken to him. He's not going to let the chance to get answers pass him by. "Who are you? Are you in charge? Because I have been here for 5 days with no indication as to why I have been taken, and I demand answers!" His voice comes out cracky from disuse. He'd given up trying to get anyone to speak to him after the second day, and he has to grip the bed frame to remain upright, but he is proud that the words come out with an air of authority. The man merely smiles, mirth playing in his eyes as they roam over Merlin's figure. "Spoken like a true queen." Merlin jolts back dumbfounded by the statement. "Excuse me?" He surveys the man, trying to catalogue his features in case it is needed later. He can't be much older than Arthur, and holds himself as a noble of high standing would. He has brown hair and eyes. All in all, he isn't bad looking, but he is no Arthur. Nobody compares to Arthur. "I will make you a deal," the man says, disregarding his previous question. "For each question of mine that you answer, I will answer one of yours." Merlin raises an eyebrow. "That would depend on the question. I will not answer anything about Camelot." The man sits on the chair next to Merlin's bed. "I'm not asking you about Camelot. I believe I asked why you refuse to eat. This," Merlin gestures toward the pendant, "is making me nauseous." The man purses his lips, peering at it before returning his eyes to Merlin's face. "I was not told that would be a side effect, just that you would be drained of energy. Obviously, I cannot have it removed, but I will have a potion brought to you to counteract the effects.
I will have the kitchen prepare you a lighter meal as well. However, I do expect you to eat as much as you can and to tell the guards if the potion is effective or not."
Merlin has even more questions after that. "Why? What is your name? Why am I here? What do you hope to achieve by doing this?"
"I told you one question for one question, darling."
Merlin tries not to flinch at the endearment.
"I will tell you that my name is Gregory Alpine."
The name rings a bell. Merlin studies him carefully, trying to recall where he heard the name. "Of Powys?" he asks. Gregory's smile widens.
"You've heard of me, then?"
"In passing," Arthur admits. "Powys is in the midst of an uprising which has turned into a full-blown civil war. Gregory Alpine is the leader of the resistance and claims to be the rightful heir to the throne. He is the first cousin of King Philip Alpine, the current ruler. From Merlin's understanding, it was rumored that King Philip's father, the former King Merlin, poisoned his older brother, the twice former King George, to assume the throne. Gregory, George's son, and Philip, Merlin's son, were children at the time. They were barely old enough to remember. Gregory's mother died in childbirth. As such, his uncle took him in as his ward. While it was never proven that King Merlin killed his brother, it is well known that King George was an unjust ruler. His laws were cruel, and his people were left starving while he lavished himself with the riches of the kingdom. Around a year ago, shortly after Merlin died and Philip assumed the throne, Gregory staged a rebellion that had the force of something that had been in the works for several years. Many nobles do not wish Philip on the throne, as he is said to be weak-willed. Other than that, he hasn't heard much about Philip. The short time that he has been in power has been overshadowed by the Civil War. Gregory, on the other hand, is told to be obsessive and demanding, powerful in his own right, and determined. Merlin only has this knowledge because Powys shares a border with Kent. Powys and Camelot have never had much of a relationship. They are a decent distance apart, having to travel through Nemeth and Kent to reach each other, and Powys has always remained relatively isolated, only trading with the few kingdoms sharing its borders. And while King Merlin was a better king than his brother, he still wasn't known for his kindness or charity. Arthur had insisted on staying informed on the Civil War, but has maintained that they would not interfere unless either side tried to expand their territory or draw in one of Camelot's allies, namely Kent. Kent and Powys have a tentative relationship at best during times of peace. Therefore, King Harold and Queen Dahlia have remained tense in aspects of the Civil War. This does not bode well for Merlin or Camelot. Arthur won't think to look here, and when he does find Merlin, Gregory is bound to have drawn Camelot into this civil war. Now, Merlin just has to figure out why he is here. Gregory probably wants him for his magic, which he will refuse to use. Then the torture will begin. It's too bad. Merlin rather liked those rose-petaled baths.
"That is good to hear. I'm glad my name precedes me,"
Gregory says, interrupting Merlin's thoughts.
"How are you finding your accommodations?"
"Accommodations? You mean my prison cell?" Merlin asks, because he can't help it. He has never been one to hold back in the face of stupidity. Gregory chuckles, gesturing around the room.
"I'd hardly call this a prison cell, Merlin. Yes, you can't leave, but that won't last forever. Once you have come to accept the situation, you will be more than welcome to roam the castle with guards, of course."
"And what is the situation that I need to accept?"
"Tell me how you are finding your room, and I will tell you why you are here,"
Gregory says, remaining relaxed. Of the things Merlin has heard of Gregory, relaxed and kind are not among them, though he supposes the man could be putting on a facade to gather followers. Not that Merlin will ever follow him. Merlin frowns. "It is fine. Much better than the actual prison cell I was expecting, I suppose. Why am I here?" Gregory sighs.
"I didn't hear you are quite inquisitive,"
Merlin starts.
"Nevertheless, I am glad you like your room. If you find yourself in want of anything, please inform the guards. I am pleased that you felt comfortable enough to ask for blankets."
Comfortable enough? It was either ask for blankets or freeze to death. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but still, Merlin has always gotten cold easily. He sleeps best when he lays next to Arthur because Arthur is a furnace. Merlin misses Arthur. This conversation is taking a lot out of him, and he wishes that his king would find him soon, but the chances of that are looking dimmer by the second.
As to why you are here,
Gregory says, once again interrupting Merlin's inner monologue.
I assume that if you have heard of my name, then you have also heard of the current strife within my kingdom.
Merlin nods along, hoping Gregory will finally answer his question.
While my followers grow and Philip's position wavers, it has come to my attention that many find me to be too harsh. It makes some hesitate to follow me. One of my advisors suggested that a way to soften my persona would be to find a queen.
Merlin is not following.
You must understand, Merlin, that I accept nothing but the best, and it is obvious to all of Albion that you are the best.
Merlin stares at Gregory. There is not a word to describe the confusion that Merlin feels. The best what, sorcerer? I'm not going to use my magic to help you take over Palace. Gregory chuckles. Merlin is starting to become frustrated. Does this man take anything seriously?
You misunderstand. I'm not asking you for your magic, Merlin. I have a few sorcerers of my own who fight for me. While your power will likely come in handy later, it is not why I have you here now. You are here because you are to be my queen. There is no queen in Albion loved more than you are. Stories of the Queen of Camelot, of your kindness and fairness, have spread far and wide. People kiss the ground you walk on. They adore you no matter their status. You have won the hearts of not just Camelot, but of most of Albion. With you by my side, there will be nothing that I cannot do, that we cannot do.
Okay. What? No, this has gone too far. Merlin is not the queen. It's a joke. A joke! Maybe this is a joke, a big terrible joke. That reminds Merlin of something else that's a joke. His life. Yeah, his life is a running joke created by the gods for comic relief. Merlin hates his life!
I think there has been a misunderstanding. I am not the Queen of Camelot. That's a joke. People just call me the queen because it's funny. I'm not actually the queen.
Gregory's smile remains. Merlin hates that smile. He wants to punch it.
Modest, too, I see. Another thing that precedes you.
Merlin shakes his head.
No, I'm serious. It's a joke. Arthur and I are not married. Camelot does not have a queen.
Gregory cocks his head, mirth still clear in his eyes.
I can assure you there is no joke at play, darling.
Merlin hates the endearment more than he hates the smile.
Your people consider you their queen, as equally as they do Arthur Pendragon their king. I did not bring you here solely because of hearsay. I spent 2 months gathering intel within Camelot's walls. Is it not true that a riot gathered because you refused to leave your room, of which a majority were on your side?
It wasn't even half! Merlin yells before he realizes that he is not helping himself. Regardless, I have no crown, and therefore am no queen.
And that is what I am offering you. While it is clear that you need no actual crown for people to follow you, you will finally have the official title you deserve. People will flock to me easily with you by my side, and when they do, I can offer you much more than King Arthur ever could.
Merlin snorts. Whether I am a queen or not, if you spent any time learning about me, then you will have heard that I only serve one king, and that is King Arthur. Gregory's smile wavers slightly.
It is true that I have heard of your loyalty. However, you will not be serving me, Merlin. You will be ruling with me.
Fine, I will rule with no one but Arthur, Merlin says indignantly. Gregory's smile tightens.
I suppose we will see about that. I intend to win you over.
Merlin's expression turns incredulous. He chooses to ignore that statement. If I am the Queen of Camelot, as you say, surely your advisors wouldn't have suggested that you choose me. You are in the midst of a war, and you choose to invoke the wrath of the most powerful king in Albion? How will that fare for you, fighting a war on 2 fronts?
I admit that my advisors were against choosing you. However, the moment I saw you, I knew I had to have you.
He reaches forward to stroke Merlin's cheek. Merlin flinches back so violently he hits the wall behind his head. He growls, "Don't touch me!" Gregory leans back in his seat, seemingly unaffected.
There are many things that can be said of me, darling, but I am not that sort of man. I will not touch you until you ask me.
He smacks.
And you will ask me.
Merlin scoots further away, drawing the blanket close and swallowing the acid that rises in his throat.
As for King Arthur, he is only considered to be such a powerful king when you are by his side. He is nothing without you.
That is not true! Merlin can't help but shout. Gregory, tss.
And from what I've heard, he is not dealing well with your absence. Once I take my place as rightful king of powers with you as my queen, Camelot will be mine for the taking. Although I may not even have to take it, its own citizens could very well turn to me when it is clear that you have turned on their king.
That will never happen!
We'll see.
Gregory stands.
I have things to attend to. I will have the guards bring you a new lunch and a potion. I will send for a bath as well. It'll help soothe your nerves. One of the maids will tend to you.
As he reaches the door, he turns around once more.
And don't be counting on a rescue, Merlin. I left several false trails that King Arthur continues to follow. By the time he finds you, you'll be well acquainted with your new kingdom.
In the following days, Merlin's energy fades even more if possible. He can hardly stand on his own. The potions help curb his nausea, but not all the way. He is only able to eat bland foods in small portions at a time. Gregory insists they dine together every night that he is available, making small talk that Merlin rarely responds to. Merlin hates these nights the most. He spends the rest of his time staring out the window from his spot in the bed. Sometimes he manages to make it to the desk where there is a better view. He figures that if he can contact Mordred at some point, he should have an idea of the number of men coming and going from the castle. On the 13th day, Merlin decides that he should pretend to be nice to trick Gregory into trusting him. He spends that dinner responding more easily to the small talk. Gregory asks him about himself, never speaking of Arthur or Camelot, so Merlin gives him shallow answers but elaborates them to make it seem like he is giving more information than he really is. He became a master of talking without saying anything years ago. Gregory appears pleased. He must think isolating Merlin, cutting off all contact but with himself, is a way to sway Merlin to his side, but for all of the information Gregory says he gathered before taking Merlin, he doesn't seem to know him at all. If Gregory knew anything, he'd know that Merlin will never give up. As long as he is breathing, he will love Arthur. Nothing in the world can change that, certainly not some fake king with a bigger ego than Arthur. On the 17th day, Merlin can't sit up on his own. The pendant is taking everything out of him. Everything but his hope. He'll always believe in Arthur, even if there has been no sign of him. Merlin doesn't blame him. No one would think of Albus or Gregory. When Gregory arrives for dinner, he's already been notified of Merlin's strength or lack thereof. One of the maids, Merlin doesn't know her name, but she is the kindest of the lot, despite not being allowed to speak to him, spoon-fed him broth for breakfast and lunch.
You understand why I can't remove it, don't you?
Gregory says in place of a greeting. Merlin uses what energy he has left to turn his head towards him.
The iron shackles, I've been told you can escape from them.
Merlin shakes his head almost imperceptibly.
Not that quickly. It takes time and energy.
He leans his head back down.
Give me an hour and no pendant. It'll help, I think.
He doesn't know how Gregory thinks he will be any sort of queen for him like this.
The woman that found that pendant told me it shouldn't affect a sorcerer like this. Not a sorcerer, Merlin breathes. I'm a warlock. I don't have magic. I am magic. It hits me harder.
When Gregory doesn't speak, just watches him carefully. He's always staring. Merlin gathers his breath to speak again.
For a sorcerer, it's like taking away their ability to taste. Less enjoyable, but survivable. Me, it's like taking away my ability to breathe.
Merlin closes his eyes so he can't see Gregory's expression. He hopes he'll say yes. An hour will be enough time to try to contact Mordred. It's a far distance, but he and Mordred have grown close enough, a shock to everyone, most of all Merlin, that he thinks he'll be able to reach out to him. He knows better than to call out to Kilgara. It would be too noticeable. Gregory will have him killed or moved to another location within seconds. He is so lost in his thoughts that he almost misses Gregory agreeing.
Fine. I will give you half an hour with just the iron cuffs. We will see if that helps. You will be supervised the entire time. If you try anything funny...
Too weak, Merlin croaks.
If you behave, however, I will consider allotting a daily time. Is that clear?
Merlin nods. Thank you. The words taste like acid, but he's taking to thanking Gregory to seem more sincere.
Anything for you, darling?
Merlin wants to vomit at the words. Actual acid fills his throat as he hears the door close. He only allows himself a quiet whimper when he is sure that Gregory is too far to hear. He's been losing track of time, his thoughts often wandering to Arthur, so he isn't sure how long Gregory is gone. It doesn't seem like a long time, but Merlin can't be sure. He's only been able to keep track of the days by scratching into the wall behind the bed. He uses a quill he found in one of the desk drawers and hides it under his pillow so that if Gregory ever tries anything, he can try to stab him in the eye. It's the best weapon he's got. Pitiful, but a weapon no less.
I will watch over you while I eat my dinner,
Gregory says when he enters the room again, a pair of cuffs in his hand.
If all goes well, I will have one of the guards sent to do it tomorrow.
Merlin nods again. You'll not be here tomorrow? Gregory smiles, pleased at the question. Good, Merlin is trying hard.
No, I have somewhere to be. I will be back the day after.
Merlin offers his hands. Gregory takes them gently, acting as though he is caring for his lover. Merlin supposes he thinks that he is. The cuffs weigh heavy on his wrists. He watches passively as his hands drop back to his stomach without his permission, too weak to hold the weight on their own. Gregory helps him sit up, every touch feeling wrong. Merlin doesn't have to have his eyes open to know when he unclasps the pendant. His body reacts on its own, even with the iron cuffs in place. He hadn't realized how much it drained from him. He is still weak, but he feels like the air is actually reaching his lungs when he breathes.
There, you seem better already. See what you can eat. If you need help, let me know.
Merlin reaches for the tray on his lap, noting with little interest the porridge he shoves into his mouth shakily. Mordred? Mordred, can you hear me? Please, tell me you can hear me! Mordred! He has never been happier that his eyes do not glow when he communicates with his mind.
Merce, are you okay? Where are you? Who took you? Please tell me you're okay.
Mordred's voice enters his mind with the force of someone afraid that he won't be heard if he doesn't scream loud enough. Merlin has never been happier to hear the knight's voice. He has to focus all his attention on not showing his relief or crying from sheer joy. Gregory is going on about something of his childhood. Merlin hums appropriately, pretending to focus on gathering another spoonful of porridge. I've only been given half an hour and I'm incredibly weak, so I need you to listen carefully. I'm listening. Everyone is here, Emrys. We were in a council meeting. Arthur is listening. Merlin has to close his eyes and take a deep breath. He wishes it was Arthur's voice in his mind. He wishes it was Arthur eating dinner with him. He wishes for Arthur more than anything. But he will not cry. He won't. He can't. I'm in Powys in the tallest tower of the old castle. Gregory Alpine claims to have captured me with the intent of making me his queen. His forces are strong. I fear they will win the civil war any day now. When he does, it won't be long before he comes after Camelot. He thinks it will be weak without me. Merlin takes another deep breath, commenting half-heartedly as Gregory continues to speak. The man loves to talk about himself, Merlin has found. There is a pause before Mordred responds. He must be relaying the message. Are you hurt? How has he been able to keep you captured? Why are you just now able to speak to me? He put some sort of pendant on me. I can't escape it. I've tried. It takes all of my magic. I can't call for Kilgara or to you when it's on. It drains all of my energy. I've not been hurt in any other way. Gregory has me locked in my room, but other than that and the pendant, I've not been injured. He thinks that treating me well will sway me to his side, make me more agreeable. I was able to convince him to allow me some time in just the iron cuffs.
He only allowed it because he wants me to remain as healthy as possible. Tell Arthur to not charge in here without a second thought. He needs a plan. Gregory has several hundred men on his side, if not more, from what I've seen. Even if they are fighting another war, he keeps the castle guarded constantly. Arthur should reach out to King Philip. He'll be willing to give more information on Gregory's forces if he knows that Arthur intends to move against them. Please tell Arthur to be careful. Merlin does slump in his bed this time. He's never realized how much energy it takes to communicate like this. Everything he is gaining back from being without the pendant seems to be draining just as quickly.
He says he will. He says to tell you that we are coming for you, Merlin. We are coming. You just need to hold on a little longer.
For the first time, Merlin is glad that he is already shaking because he knows that he wouldn't be able to hide his reaction.
Tell him that I'll never stop holding on for him. I'll hold on until the end of time if I knew he'd be there waiting for me. He breathes through his nose. Tell him I love him more than anything and everything. Forever and always, until the stars die, and even after that.
He loves you too, more than anything and everything. Forever and always until the stars die, and even after that.
Okay, Merlin. Time to put the pendant back on,
Gregory says. Merlin sags visibly. He could swear it hasn't been half an hour.
I know, but you know why it has to stay on.
Merlin nods absent-mindedly.
I have to go. Tell him to be careful. I love you. I'm okay. I'll be waiting. Be careful. I love you. I love you. I love you.
It lets Gregory think the sob that escapes him is from the pain. The exhaustion isn't as bad as it was before, but he thinks that knowing there is a way back to Arthur gives him more energy. Gregory is whispering soothing words to him as he helps Merlin lie back down.
Do you think it helped?
He says when Merlin is almost asleep.
Yes,
Merlin croaks.
I feel a little better. We'll see about tomorrow then. Thank you,
Merlin says again, even if it's hard to force out.
You're welcome.
Gregory smiles that awful smile.
I will see you in 2 days' time. Good night, darling.
Merlin falls asleep thinking of Arthur's smile. The next 6 days go by slowly. Gregory allows Merlin to take off the pendant for half an hour each day, but the third. On the third, everyone is too busy to supervise him. He spends some of the time without the pendant, being updated by Mordred about their progress and whereabouts. Most of it, though, he uses to speak to Arthur through Mordred. He has a feeling that Mordred has planted himself by Arthur's side. Merlin never knows when the allotted time will occur, so there is never any warning, yet every time Arthur is there responding back to him through Mordred without hesitation. Sometimes they talk about Arthur's plans. They even argue a few times when Merlin disagrees. Other times they talk about whatever they want. Merlin tells him about the books he occasionally has the energy to read and to bring extra horses because some of them are rare and under no circumstances will he be leaving them behind. Arthur tells him that he can have as many books as he wants, and if necessary, he can task Gawain with carrying them all the way home because Gawain deserves it. He gives no further explanation. Merlin thinks that with Gawain, it could be anything. Arthur only brings up the cow once because Merlin decides that he has found a way to make the whole thing Arthur's fault, which infuriates Arthur, but he can't yell at Merlin because he is captured and all, so the joke's on him. Arthur also tells him that Gwen has finished knitting Ellion his new hat after Mordred puked in the last one. He says that Carl found out that it was Leon who threw the hat out the window at Gawain's insistence. Apparently, Carl was infuriated, but calmed down when he found out that it was Mordred's puke, and was much more worried about Mordred's health than the puke hat. Mordred relays this begrudgingly, adding his own commentary that Carl was not worried about his health because Mordred hates Carl. Merlin doesn't understand how that has anything to do with how Carl feels about Mordred, but he doesn't push it. Mordred is putting up with a lot, and Merlin can't find the words to say how thankful he is. Mordred tells him that Arthur acts much better after he speaks to Merlin. He only vaguely explains how Arthur is faring. Merlin knows Arthur can't be doing much better than him. Mordred probably doesn't want to worry him, but Merlin knows Arthur better than anyone. He doesn't need to be told. He goes out of his way to make comments that he thinks will make Arthur smile. He asks Mordred every time if Arthur is smiling so that he can picture it in his mind. Mordred starts telling him when he's smiling without prompts. When the allotted time draws to an end, Arthur never fails to promise him that they are coming and that he loves him. Merlin repeats the sentiment over and over until the pendant is clasped back around his neck. On the 24th day, Merlin keeps his blinds open so that the sunrise wakes him. He uses his last bit of energy to haul himself into a sitting position, then he waits. It isn't long before he hears the first war cry! The effect is instant. He hears shouting through the doors, but no one bursts into the room to grab Merlin because Gregory left last night with most of his knights for an attack on the citadel, which Merlin relayed to Mordred, who told Arthur, who told King Philip. Philip's army, which is far stronger than Gregory made it out to be, will be waiting to ambush them. Camelot's army, aided by 40 Nemeth knights and 60 Kent knights, Arthur says they were offered the aid as they passed through the territories, will take the castle. Merlin wishes that he had the energy to move to the window and watch. He needs to see Arthur. He needs to. He's always been able to tell when he is near. His magic reaches out for the king. Even now, when it is bound, it struggles to find him, knowing he's near. As he waits, listening to the sounds of swords clashing, Merlin prays for Arthur's safety and for the safety of all those who fight. He knows Gregory's forces are outnumbered, but that doesn't guarantee the life of every man. When the commotion draws towards the stairs, he moves to plant his feet on the floor, arms shaky and body shivering as he pulls off his blankets. Gregory has only offered him nightgowns. While comfortable, they don't provide much body warmth. There is screaming and pounding footsteps up the stairs. There are more than one set of steps, but Merlin swears he can pick out the sound of Arthur's. The shouting becomes closer to the door, and then there is a noise that reminds Merlin of the time Arthur tried to break down his door when he had confined himself to his room. This door isn't barred with magic, though. It gives easily to the brute strength. Not a moment later, a knight is stepping through the doorway, but it's not just any knight. It's his knight. His king. His Arthur! A choked sob escapes his throat. Arthur! When he tries to stand, his knees give out, but he never touches the ground. Arthur is there to catch him. He always is. Just like Merlin is always there to catch him. They catch each other. It's how they never fall. Merlin, Arthur says like it is the single most important word in existence. It's enough to make Merlin grip him as tightly as possible. A silent promise to never let go. As sobs rack his body. Somehow they end up on the ground anyway, Arthur bringing Merlin down onto his lap. He pulls Merlin's head back from where it is tucked against his chest so that he can see him more clearly. It doesn't last long because Merlin emits another sob and Arthur takes it upon himself to kiss every inch of his face. His cheeks, his nose, his eyes, his forehead, his chin. Merlin laughs until he hears the distinct click of a clasp and he can feel his eyes swirl with gold. His magic reaches out, latching around Arthur protectively, instinctively. Arthur whips the pendant across the room and cups Merlin's face, his thumb wiping away tears. Beautiful, he says before finally placing a kiss on his lips. Never again. Miss you. Love you. Love you more. Not possible. Is so? Oh yeah, I love you even after the cow. Merlin laughs a bell-like sound that makes Arthur beam as he soaks it in. I love you even though the cow was your fault. Arthur tries to look put out, but it doesn't work. They both know he isn't. He kisses Merlin again instead. When they finally stand, Arthur wraps him in his cloak and eyes the nightgown with worry. He hesitates. Did he? No, Merlin says, shaking his head for emphasis. Arthur nods, ending the conversation. Lancelot and Mordred are waiting patiently by the doorway. Arthur's hands never leave Merlin, even as he jumps forward to hug both of the knights. They keep one hand locked together, and Merlin uses his other arm to wrap around Lancelot, then Mordred. Mordred jumps in shock. Even though they'd grown close, Merlin rarely touches him, so Merlin grips him with all of the strength he has left. Thank you, Merlin says through another sob. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll never be able to thank you enough. Mordred finally grips him back. You don't have to. It's what I'm here for, Embers. Merlin somehow manages to grip him even tighter. I'm sorry for everything. I should have given you a chance. It's okay, I understand why you didn't. I'm so sorry. And I'll forgive you. I'll say it 1,000,000 times if you need to hear it. Because I'm Embers? Because you're Merlin. Merlin pulls away with a smile that is so wide, Mordred can barely match it with his own. Arthur yanks him back into his grip when his knees start to waver, gathering the warlock in his arms when it is obvious he is too weak to walk far distances. Merlin doesn't complain that Arthur is carrying him like a fair maiden. As long as he is in Arthur's arms, he doesn't care.
There you all! While you've been having heartfelt reunions, the rest of us have been dealing with the surrender,
Gawain announces when they reach the bottom of the stairs. Arthur rolls his eyes, placing Merlin down so he can hug Gawain. Gawain hugs it tightly.
Go along with it,
he whispers before pulling back, looking distraught.
I do have some bad news, though.
He snivels, and Merlin can only brace himself for whatever he is about to unleash on them.
What is it?
Arthur says, his brow furrowed.
Is Carl?
Mordred's eyes widen. What are you?
We don't think he's going to make it.
Mordred spins toward the entrance, breath caught in his throat, and eyes wild as he looks for any sign of Carl.
What? I was just with him. He can't be.
Merlin puts an arm on his shoulder. He's lying, Mordred. Carl's fine. Mordred turns on his heels again, glaring at Gawain with a fit of anger that shocks even Arthur. Mordred is never angry, not like this.
What the hell, Gawain? Do you think that was funny?
Gawain doesn't stop smiling, even when Merlin is sure Mordred is planning his murder.
I knew you had feelings for him. Look at the way you reacted.
He's a brother in arms. I would act that way for anyone that...
No, you wouldn't.
Gawain, I swear I'm going to...
Merlin puts his hand on Mordred's shoulder again, squeezing it gently.
Gawain, there are quite a few books upstairs that Arthur said I could bring home. Why don't you go collect them? You'll be carrying them home for me.
Gawain looks stricken.
Oh, come on, Merls. It was just a joke.
Then while you are carrying them the entire way home, you can be thinking about what qualifies as a good joke and what we should never joke about, he says, smiling sweetly. Gawain slumps.
Okay. Gawain? Okay, I'm sorry, Merlin.
Gawain! Gawain sighs as he turns to Mordred.
I'm sorry, Mordred. That joke was in poor taste. I should have never said that Carl was dead when I know you love him almost as much as Merlin and Arthur love each other.
Gawain! Merlin scolds. Gawain bows.
I should have never said that Carl was dead either way. Joking about death is bad, and I won't do it again. I'm very sorry, Mordred.
I don't accept your apology.
Mordred huffs before walking away to most likely find Carl.
And until he does,
you will be prohibited from every tavern in Camelot, Merlin adds.
Oh, Merlin, no! That's not fair!
I don't want to hear it. Gawain, go collect the books, Merlin says, pointing to the stairs before making grabby hands at Arthur, who rolls his eyes but picks Merlin back up swiftly. Merlin has decided that he doesn't care if he looks like a fair maiden. He's quite comfortable like this, even with the chainmail.
Arthur!
Gawain calls after them as they walk away.
You heard him, Gawain!
Arthur yells over his shoulder. Arthur never lets Merlin out of touching distance, not when they meet with Philip to confirm Gregory's death and a pending peace treaty, or when they climb on their horse to leave. Arthur insists they share, Merlin sitting in the front with Arthur keeping his arms tight around him because he keeps falling in and out of consciousness. Arthur remains by his side the entire time, which is just fine with Merlin. As they pass the border into Kent, the men set up camp in one of the forests, while Arthur, Merlin, and a few knights lead the Kent knights back to the castle. Dahlia and Harold are waiting for them at the entrance. Dahlia picks up her skirt and runs to them in the most queenly manner.
Oh, Merlin, honey, I'm so glad you're okay.
She wraps Merlin in a tight embrace. Merlin meets it with equal enthusiasm. For only meeting Dahlia half a year ago, they have become great friends. He has missed her quite a bit. Arthur also informed him that Kent had been sending scouts out to search for any sight of Merlin ever since he'd gone missing. Apparently, they had already received some rumors from Kent's scouts that Merlin had been spotted being taken to Powys. It was mostly hearsay, but they had already been in the process of contacting Philip to demand entry into the kingdom when Merlin was finally able to contact them. And upon hearing that he was captured by Gregory, Dahlia and Harold offered their knights even before knowing that Nemeth had also offered some of theirs.
Thank you for all of the help, Merlin says into her shoulder. I am so grateful for everything you've done. If there was anything we could do...
That is not necessary, Merlin. You are my friend. I'm just glad you are safe,
she says before releasing him. You are the best of friends, Dahlia.
As are you, Merlin. Now come, you're dead on your feet. I have prepared your previous rooms, as I trusted that you'd be coming back safely any minute. Just in case, I have prepared both rooms.
Thank you, Dahlia, but we will only be needing one. I'll never be letting him out of my sight again,
Arthur says, wrapping an arm around Merlin's waist. Merlin rolls his eyes as Dahlia laughs.
Yes, I assumed that would be the case. I've prepared rooms for your knights as well.
With that, she leads them into the castle, barely allowing them to exchange pleasantries with Harold as she regales a story up to Merlin about Lady Catherine and her unfortunate incident with the butcher that had nothing to do with Dahlia. Merlin laughs along, offering ideas of his own that would also have nothing to do with Dahlia when she mentions that Lord de Raloz has been making his snide remarks again. Arthur pretends he isn't listening to the conversation as he likes to think that ignorance is the key when it comes to Merlin and Dahlia. They make it through Kent the following day and set up camp at the border of Nemeth. A tent is set up for him and Arthur, but they spend most of the night by the fire so that Merlin can catch up with his friends. Merlin misses them greatly, and he knows they are worried about him. It is when Carl comes over to retrieve something that Mordred had borrowed from him and bows to Merlin again that Merlin has had enough. No, this has gone on long enough. It's not even just Carl that bows to him. Most of the knights have started to as well, and Merlin knows that it has nothing to do with him being amorous like when Mordred bows to him, despite Merlin telling him not to. What do you mean, Merlin? Lancelot asks when Carl straightens, looking befuddled. The bowing and the whole queen thing. It's the reason we got into this mess. Arthur reaches forward. Merlin, no, I am not the queen. It was a funny joke at first, but it has gone too far. Other people are starting to think it's true, Arthur. It's going to confuse foreign dignitaries. It already has, if Dahlia has anything to go by. Don't even get me started on what Gregory was spewing to me. Merlin, he told me that he spent 2 months stalking me because he heard that I was the best queen in Albion. Do you hear that? The best queen in Albion, not the best sorcerer, the best queen. He told me that stories have spread about my fair and kind rule and that people kiss the ground I walk on. And he seriously believed that Camelot was bound to fall in my absence. That or turn on Arthur and willingly follow Gregory should I become his queen. And this is all because you all think it's hilarious to go around calling me the bloody queen. In case none of you noticed, I'm not actually the queen. I have no crown, there was no coronation, and Arthur and I aren't married. Now, everybody say it with me. Merlin is not the queen. Merlin is not the queen. Say it! Nobody says it. They stare at him instead, a sense of bafflement surrounding the fire. Most of the surrounding camp has fallen silent too. Arthur! Merlin yells when they keep staring at him. Arthur clears his throat. Do you not want to be the queen? Merlin's jaw drops. What? What are you even... Did you not hear what I said at all? I am not the queen. It has nothing to do with wanting. It's a simple fact. I am not the queen. Arthur turns to Mordred, who turns to Elliot, who turns to Percival, who turns to Gawain, who turns to Lancelot. Lancelot sighs, wishing he'd been left behind to guard Camelot with Leon. It's always him. Merlin, it's not a joke. We are very serious. You are the queen. It's Merlin's turn to stare, his jaw not being able to drop any further. Yeah, Gawain cuts in. That asshole Gregory, may he not rest in peace, may have been an asshole, but it wasn't wrong. You are definitely the best queen in Albion. No contention. You don't need a crown to be our queen. Everyone has come to recognize it on their own and willingly accept it because you're the best queen there is, Lancelot adds. And the people love you. That's why they are always giving you gifts and wishing you well. To be quite frank, they do kiss the ground you walk on, Merlin. They'd do anything for you, Percival says. Mordred smiles. The knights don't bow to you as a joke either, Emrys. There isn't a good person in Camelot who wouldn't be offended if someone didn't treat you as per your station, the Queen of Camelot. Even foreign dignitaries. It's why they treat you so well on visits. Not only did you manage to win all of their hearts, but it is known that to mistreat the queen is to mistreat not only the king, but all of Camelot, Elgin says. Lancelot nods.
Why do you think Nemeth and Kent offered their man to Arthur to help find you? They adore you, Merlin. Even after you and Gawain set the tavern on fire in Nemeth. If Arthur is to be the High King of Albion, then you are to be its queen, and its people wholly agree. Merlin blinks. But why? Why what? Lancelot asks. I'm not crowned. Why have I been given this title? You can't be serious, Merlin, Elian says, but Merlin continues to blink. He is very serious. You are the only one Arthur listens to fully. You keep him in check. Well, yeah, but you take audiences and petitions with Arthur, Gawain adds. He had the queen's throne brought out so you could sit next to him. My legs were tired. Elian rolls his eyes. You run the household. That doesn't... You are kind and considerate of everyone. You use the powers you have been given to help your people. Percival offers. Of course I would... You run the kingdom with Arthur, side by side. Without you, Camelot falls to pieces, Lancelot says. I'm sure it wouldn't... Arthur takes his hand. Merlin, Lancelot is right about that. Gregory wasn't that off about Camelot without you, either. Arthur looks like he is trying not to flinch. The others don't hide it as well. They all become noticeably rigid. What are you talking about? Merlin asks. Things have been not so great since you went missing, Arthur admits. It's why I sent those few knights ahead of us while we went to speak with Philip. I wanted to get word to Camelot that you were safe as soon as possible. The people, they've been, well... What the princess is trying to say is that Camelot has gone to shit without you. Gawain blurts out. It's almost him. What? It's true. We shouldn't sugarcoat it. The only thing we've let go on long enough is Merlin not realizing how important he is to Camelot. Do you know how bad things became in your absence, Merlin? Gawain, I don't think keeping this from him is not serving anyone, Lance. Gawain faces Merlin. The first week was painful. Troops of knights were sent out on hunts. Even townspeople offered to search the forest in groups. After the 5th day of no word, people grew wary. Many had taken to staying indoors, even the children. On the 7th day, a group of townspeople started a vigil to pray for your safe return. There was a group present at all hours, guarding it and praying. It was still going on when we left, and the castle was in unrest. Without you, the household went to hell. The servants walked the halls like ghosts. The stable boys didn't talk. Nothing was in order in the kitchen. It's been chaos. Gwen was woefully unprepared for taking over the household. She had no clue how much work you do, let alone how to do it, while the kingdom was falling apart because her best friend was missing or dead. Most of the knights were out searching for any sign of you, but when they were off shift, they confined themselves to their rooms. Training was cancelled because Lancelot was busy helping Gwen with the castle. I spent most nights drinking myself to sleep. Percival only came out of his room to search for you and for council meetings, and Elian wasn't much better. And Lean spent most of his time trying to help Arthur with the running of the kingdom, which he was even more unprepared for than Gwen was with the household. Do you know why he had to help Arthur, Merlin? Because Arthur lost his shits! Wait, that's enough! Arthur shouted. No! Did you think we weren't going to tell him, princess? Merlin, he's been out of his mind! He spent the first week yelling at everyone he came into contact with. He stopped sleeping. He only ate on the few occasions Gwen managed to force it down his throat. He left the castle several times in the dead of night by himself to look for you. Arthur! Arthur stares at his hands, not meeting Merlin in the eyes. That wasn't even the worst of it. After the first week, he stopped yelling. He only spoke when it was to give orders that concerned you. Leon and Lancelot tried to cover for him to make the kingdom appear stronger, despite the fact that if anyone had tried to attack, we'd have been sacked within hours. Another thing that Gregory the asshole was right about. I suspect that if Camelot hadn't been sacked first, Arthur would have been dead in months. Gawain! Merlin says, completely stricken by the idea and feeling a lot like he is going to puke. Arthur still refuses to look at him. From the way Mordred had spoken about Arthur, Merlin had a vague idea that he wasn't handling his absence well, but he had no idea it was this bad. Merlin?
Lancelot starts softly, knowing this topic isn't meant for Gawain's harsh way of going about things.
The council meeting we were in the day you were finally able to reach out to Mordred, there was a reason we were all there. Arthur called the meeting to name Leon as his successor.
What Lancelot didn't say was that Arthur knew he wouldn't last long without Merlin. He knew and took conscious steps to prepare for his death. Merlin stumbles back.
Arthur!
He takes a deep breath.
You don't get to... You can't... How could you?
Arthur's gaze remains on the ground as he speaks quietly.
That's not fair, Merlin. What did you expect of me? What did I expect of you? Arthur, if something were to happen to me, you can't just give up! I didn't give up, Merlin. I just spent the rest of my life searching for you.
That is not what I meant! I know you'd never give up on me, but I didn't think you'd give up on Camelot! Everything you've built...
Everything we've built!
Arthur screams, meeting Merlin's gaze with a swirling of emotions.
And it's nothing without you!
Arthur, you had every right to be upset, but you can't just stop living because I'm gone. People's lives depend on you. You are their king.
And you are their queen. Arthur, stop denying it, Merlin. How can you not see? How can you not see that you are everything to me and Camelot? I woke up and you were gone. Gone without a trace. And Mordred kept trying, but he was getting no response from you. Dahlia came to us, but the lead on Pat was on the 15th day. And I would have followed it, but it was hearsay and I didn't expect much. I named Leon only because I knew I wouldn't last long without you, but because I knew Camelot would be better without me. Should you not be found?
Merlin steps forward, gripping Arthur's arm. Arthur, I will do everything I can to stand by your side, but if something is to happen to me, if I am to die before you, you cannot let that be your ruin. You are the greatest king Alpine has ever known, will ever known.
A king is nothing without his queen. Just look at my father.
Arthur says, resignation in his eyes. Merlin opens his mouth to argue, but he cuts himself off.
I am no fool, Merlin. I know that my father stopped being a king the day my mother died. He was a tyrant. Camelot would have been better off without him.
Merlin cups his cheeks, steely determination in his eyes. You are not your father.
I could be,
he whispers, taking Merlin's hand into his own.
Given the circumstances, given you. Merlin, you were gone. I couldn't find you anywhere. You'd vanished, and
Arthur shakes his head.
I never understood how my father could do it. Blame so many innocents for something that was out of their control. Persecute thousands in response to the death of one.
He takes a shaky breath.
I do now. The only thing I don't understand is how we lasted so long without her.
Merlin brings Arthur's hand to his mouth, placing a kiss on the palm. Do you know what? None of this matters because you didn't lose me, and you never will. We can discuss hypotheticals all day long, but no matter what happens, I will always come back to you. And when I can't come back on my own, I'll be waiting for you to come to me. Always. Do you hear me? Death itself couldn't keep us apart.
Arthur searches his eyes. Yes, always.
But during those times, when we are apart, we don't give up hope. We keep going because they aren't forever, and kingdoms don't run themselves. Merlin says, a slight smile on his face. Arthur shakes his head, finding no humor in the situation.
No, I'm not. I can't do this again, Merlin. I can't keep losing you and hoping you'll be okay when I find you. I can't. I won't.
Arthur, there are always going to be people after us. It is who we are.
Maybe we can be more careful. You can be more careful. You always yell at me for not being careful enough, but you won't any better. You aren't an invisible manservant anymore. Do you think Harold lets Dahlia collect herbs in the woods by herself?
Merlin rolls his eyes.
I understand that was foolish, but nothing. There were going to be some new rules. Anything that used to be in place for my mother will now be in place for you.
Arthur!
No, I'm serious. You want to leave the castle without an escort. Your days will be planned in the way mine are. That means any impromptu meetings with druids, sorcerers, bakers, or whatever else you get up to in and out of the castle will go through me, even if you have guards.
That's ridiculous!
I don't care how ridiculous you find it, Merlin. It's happening, and that's just the beginning.
Arthur, I am an extremely powerful warlock. You can't just... I can, and I will. Being an extremely powerful warlock didn't stop Gregory from getting to you. And you are more than that. You are the Queen of Camelot. And it's time that I treat you as such.
Merlin groans.
Get it through your thick skull. I am not the actual queen. What the hell? What are you doing? Stop it. That's not funny. Oh my god! It's happening! Gawain shouts, reminding Merlin that they are not alone. What a twist! I was not expecting this at all. I am pleasantly surprised. Shit. I wasn't prepared for this today. I'm not even in my best clothes. Oh god, Gwen is going to be so pissed she is in here. Who's going to tell her? Not me. I won't. I value my life. It's just beautiful. I'm going to cry. It can't happen if you won't shut up. Arthur yells, remaining on the knee he had dropped 2 moments ago. Mordred, he says, gesturing to the knight who pulls a ring out of his pocket. Merlin gasps, Arthur! You're too nosy for your own good, and the new Mordred was the only one who could keep something like this a secret. He's been carrying it around for months. Arthur smirks. We resent that, Gawain yells. Yeah, we are great secret keepers. No, you aren't. Can't you ever take my sidelines? Just once. Arthur sighs. They shut up again. Except for Merlin. But you can't just... If you think you can... Merlin, shut up. You guessed it. Arthur smiles and holds up the ring. Just let me speak. No interrupting until I'm done. Merlin nods, for which Arthur is grateful. If he disagreed, this would have taken all night. I want to make it clear that I'm not doing this so I can enforce those rules on you. I would do that whether we're engaged or not. Merlin scoffs. Arthur dutifully ignores him. Nor am I doing it to get it through your thick skull that you are the Queen of Camelot because you are, whether or not we are married. That is a fact, even if you don't believe it. I'm doing this because if I have learned anything in these past few weeks, it is that I want to spend every moment with you to its fullest. You are my everything. You've always told me that you were born for me, but I think that I was born so that you could be. You are my other half, the only person I wish that I could spend every second with, knowing I'll never be bored, because life with you, Merlin, is anything but boring. Merlin laughs, covering his mouth as it turns into a sob. You are the reason I am the man I am today. The reason I am the king I am today. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for you. I love you more than anything and everything, forever and always, until the stars die, and even after that. Arthur takes a deep breath, the smile still on his face. Merlin of Yaldor, will you marry me? Merlin throws out his hand, his eyes sparkling with tears. Of course I will, you utter claphole. Took you long enough. The ring is secured. Arthur is kissing him, and everything feels right. That was so beautiful. Are you crying, Gawain? Shut up, Mordred. It's not like you any better. You're right, Sam. It was beautiful. Yeah, but don't forget Mordred's a child. This is not appropriate. Merlin, Arthur. Oh God, Mordred, cover your eyes. Get off me. Stop. I'm an adult. Oh, don't hit me. I'm trying to save your virtue for Carl. God damn it, you are so lucky he went to go tell everyone about the proposal, Gawain. If he'd been here, then we'd have another proposal on our house. Stop, you break my fingers. Good. Will you two stop? Merlin shouts because he can't ever have a peaceful moment with Arthur. When Percival punches them both harshly in the arm and they quiet down, Merlin steps back from Arthur with a smirk. Okay, my turn. He drops to his knee, mischief in his eyes. Oh, dear God! It's happening again! It's happening again! My heart's going to burst. This is too much! Somebody call the physician! Percival can't take this! What? You can't propose to me! I just proposed to you! Arthur yells over the squabbling knights. Merlin ignores him. Lancelot? Lancelot pulls a ring from his pocket. Arthur's jaw drops. Come on, Arthur. I knew you gave Mordred the ring not even 2 days after. You should have given it to Leon. I would have found out, but at least he might have lasted a week. Arthur pins his glare on Mordred. Mordred gulps. I'm sorry, sire. You threatened me. You said you wouldn't tell Emmers. The glare falls to Merlin. You threatened him? I thought he was trying to kill you. I thought we were past this, Merlin. We are, and I apologized. but he was acting suspiciously. Mordred never acts suspiciously. Anyways, it's of no consequence because I would have found out regardless of who you gave the ring to. Merlin, you're the worst!
Merlin shrugs and takes the ring from Lancelot.
No wonder you were so quick to be all muddy about secret keeping, Lancelot. You're not noble at all, a sly bastard is what you are.
Shut up and let him propose, Gawain.
Whatever.
Merlin laughs at Arthur's incredulous expression, unsure if it is a result of Merlin proposing after he just proposed, or him questioning why he knighted these men. Arthur Pendragon. Merlin starts pulling Arthur's attention back to him. When we met, I hated you. You were an utter clotball and a snobby royal ass. I wanted nothing more than to punch you in the face. The knights chuckle as Arthur rolls his eyes.
Merlin, I'm not sure if you realize how marriage proposals are supposed to work. This is exactly why I was the one.
Shut up, Arthur. It's my turn.
I'm the king, Merlin. You can't tell me to shut up.
Never stopped me before, but given that I'm the queen now, I reckon I can. Arthur grins.
I'm glad you're finally accepting it. Now go on, tell me how you fell in love with me in spite of thinking me an utter clotball.
Merlin peers up at him. Well, it's a long story. One that will be told ages from now, I imagine. It involves dragons, a dashing warlock, a dollop-headed prince, courageous knights with a tendency to be a bit thick. Hey! The occasional troll or goblin, some evil sorcerers, immortal armies, magical beasts, horrible betrayals, and more lies that can be counted. Many of them from the warlock. But somewhere along the way, that dollop-headed prince turned into the greatest king to walk the earth, and he found it in his heart to forgive the warlock for his lies.
It was never a question.
Merlin smiles, taking Arthur's hand.
And the warlock, he fell hard, embarrassingly. Can't even tell you when it happened, it just did. Almost like it was destiny.
Arthur barks out a laugh.
Arthur, I am so hopelessly in love with you, every part of you, even when you're an utter clotball, and when you blame me for the cow, even though the cow is clearly your fault.
Merlin!
Okay, we share equal blame.
Merlin!
Merlin has a laugh.
One of my favorite things about you is the way you say my name. It doesn't matter how you say it, as long as it's your voice, it's the best way it can be said. I could spend the rest of my life hearing you say it. As you say, I am your everything. You are mine. I can't imagine my life without you. You are the bravest, most loyal, and courageous man I have ever known, and I'm honored that after everything you've been through, after everything we've been through, you have chosen to give your heart to me. I will protect it as equally as I do your life, which we all know I'm very protective of. Don't mention the tongue, Arthur, I'm professing my love.
He grins up at his cane.
And I know that in giving you my heart, you will do the same. I love you, more than anything and everything, forever and always, until the stars die, and even after that. King Arthur of Camelot, will you do me the great honor of being my husband?
Well, since you already said yes to me, I suppose I'll agree.
Arthur says, pulling him to his feet and kissing him again.
Somebody get Percival to the physician's tent, hurry! No, it's too late. He's died again.
Stop saying Percival is dead, Gawain, and Percival stop playing dead.
You're both confusing everybody.
We forgot. Who was going to tell Ian? He'll be more upset than Gwen that he wasn't here. I think he'll just be happy he gets bumped down in the succession line now that Merlin's okay.
No, he'll be pissed that he wasn't here. He's been waiting for this since they started their poetry lessons.
Oh yeah, Mordred coming online again!
Gawain, he's an adult. Leave him alone.
Percival, you're alive! He's alive!
I'm leaving,
Lancelot says, walking away and diverting his eyes as Merlin and Arthur stumble toward their tent, barely making it inside before they start taking off each other's clothes. When they arrive in Camelot a few days later, Arthur insists that Merlin is still recovering and continues to make him share his horse. Merlin thinks that Arthur is just maintaining his stance that Merlin should never be more than an arm's length away from him. He doesn't argue because he actually is rather exhausted. He is feeling better than he was before, but it'll be a few days before he is back to full health. So when they enter the gates, they are riding together as they greet what looks to be the entire kingdom, lining the road all the way to the castle. Every person, be it man, woman, or child, is kneeling, but their eyes are on Arthur and Merlin. Merlin has a fleeting thought to thank Dahlia for giving him some new clothes. This would have been much more embarrassing in just a nightgown and Arthur's cloak, although Arthur's cloak is still wrapped around him tightly. Not that he minds. It smells like Arthur.
They're here for you,
Arthur whispers.
What? Merlin asks, wide-eyed.
We really weren't joking, Merlin. Our people have been devastated. They consider you to be their queen, just as they consider me to be their king. They love you. You are the people's queen.
Merlin doesn't know what to say or do in response. He settles for resting against Arthur's chest and trying not to blush as he leads them to the front of the castle. Arthur helps him off their horse and up the steps. He barely hears the king order one of the knights to ring the bell for an announcement before Gwen leaps into his arms. Merlin, I'm so glad you're okay! Merlin hugs her tightly, feeling her tears slide down his shoulder.
We thought we'd lost you both.
Never, Merlin promises. She pulls back with a smile, wiping her tears with the cloth.
Good! No one runs this household like you.
He takes her hand. I'm sure you did a better job than you think, Gwen. It was a tough time and everyone did their best. Thank you for taking care of the castle and Arthur in my stead. She grips his hand back, then looks down and gasps. Is that what I think it is? She pulls Merlin's hand closer to inspect the ring. Merlin looks away sheepishly. Oh, it is! You're getting married! She hits his arm. Oh, what was that for?
For letting me miss the proposal.
Gwen ups. No matter, I'm sure you'll make it up to me by letting me help plan the wedding. Of course, Gwen, I'd be honored if you'd help. Good, because Dahlia and I have already planned much of it. What?
Remember when Annabelle sent cakes for you and Arthur to taste test last month?
Yes?
That was for your wedding cake, Merlin.
Gwen! What is this about a wedding cake I'm hearing? Gaius cuts in, offering a hug of his own. I'm so glad you're okay. I missed you, my boy. I missed you too, Gaius. I don't know if I say it often enough, but I am so proud of you, Merlin, of everything you've done, everything you've become, and everything you will be. Thank you, guys. That means more than you'll ever know. Merlin hears the bell ring, and Arthur, who's been ordering other people around and pretending to give Merlin some space, even though he never stepped more than a foot away, guides him toward the balcony. I know you're tired, but with the people already here, we might as well get this over with. They step out together. With one hand, Arthur silences the crowd and holds Merlin's with the other. Merlin mutters a spell that he has taken to using when Arthur gives speeches, making his voice loud enough for the whole kingdom to hear. People of Camelot, Arthur begins. As you all know, our court sorcerer Merlin has just returned after almost 4 weeks of being held hostage. What you may not know was that Merlin was taken by Gregory Alpine of Powys, who claimed to be the rightful heir to the throne and was attempting to overthrow King Philip Alpine. Gregory planned to make Merlin his queen. The crowd goes into a frenzy, some yelling, others gasping in despair. Merlin is almost positive he hears someone yell, "No, no, queen!" He thinks it was Carl. Arthur raises his hand again and the crowd calms. Gregory is dead, killed by King Philip while our knights and I found Merlin. The crowd cheers. And Merlin, as you all know, is loyal until the end. He refused and opposed Gregory at every turn. The crowd is definitely chanting, Queen Merlin! At this point, Merlin blushes and finds his feet to be quite interesting. It has come to my attention, however, that Merlin does not believe himself to be our queen. He thought that Gregory Alpine had heard wrong, that he is not the Queen of Camelot or the best queen in all of Albion. No! He's our queen! Our queen! Queen Merlin! Queen Merlin! Merlin squeezes Arthur's hand and speaks from the corner of his mouth, a trick he had mastered years ago to hold conversations with Arthur without anyone noticing. Arthur, what are you doing? Are you out of your mind? Arthur naturally ignores him because he is the worst. This, my people, is a grievous error that I have set about to fix. Yeah! Queen Merlin! Queen Merlin! As such, it is with great honor that I announce my betrothal to Merlin of Yaldor, High Lord of the Druids, Last Dragon Lord, Court Sorcerer, and Queen of Camelot. Arthur kisses him right there in front of the anti-kingdom. If Merlin thought the crowd had lost control before, it was nothing compared to this. Oh my god, Arthur! Merlin squeaks as Arthur pulls away and raises their hands together into the air. Long live the Queen! Arthur shouts, and like a rippling sea, the citizens of Camelot fall to their knees. Long live the Queen! Long live the Queen! Merlin stares in awe as he watches even his closest friends kneel, chanting along with the crowd. Shit, I really am the queen, aren't I?
Arthur smirks and pulls him in once more.
Took you long enough. This is so out of order. We are married. There has been no coronation. When have you ever done as you were supposed to do, Merlin?
Merlin smirks. Never! Then he kisses Arthur again. And so the king and queen of Camelot lived happily ever after. Until the queen blew up another cow. The king was not pleased, to say the least, but as it turned out, it was actually his fault, not the queen's, because there is another rule that everyone in Camelot abides by. It is never the queen's fault.